Name is Nashon Owano. I am from Kenya and I'm currently doing my master's at the Seoul National University. And I'd like to take this time to thank the organizers of this conference for extending an invitation for me to come and do my presentation on sport podcasts and the Olympics, motives and functionality of sports podcasts in promoting Olympic values. Perhaps maybe before I start doing my presentation, it will be important to give a background of what informed starting to do this particular research. It goes without saying that the past couple of years, the space of media has experienced a lot of changes. These changes have both been in the use of AI, in the way people consume information, and in the way people disseminate information. Now, according to Newman, a study that was conducted by Newman in 2022, the field of media has experienced significant changes since the adoption of the use of internet and social media. I think one of the key things that has accelerated the changes that we are seeing in the space of media right now is the adoption and the use of the internet and social media. The internet has become a daily and the internet has become a very important part of our lives right now. I think probably for some of you who are coming to this event, even when you landed at the airport, the first thing that you made sure of is you are able to access the internet while you are in Paris for the next couple of days. So the changes in the consumption patterns has been influenced by a large degree to the use of the internet and social media. You know, um, the changes that you're seeing right now in the media, as I've mentioned, have been influenced a lot by social media. People consume media for different purposes. That is why we have Facebook. That's why we have TikTok. That's why we have Twitter. That's why we have YouTube. That's why we have Twitch. It's because of what we call the decentralization of the media system as we prior understood it to be. And another thing that sort of like informed this particular study is the changing lifestyle and the daily engagements has led to the use of podcasts due to their ease of access and flexibility to meet personal preferences. I know for some of you who go to the gym, it's very common, to see individuals who, when they are working out, are probably listening to something. So sometimes they could be listening to music, sometimes they could be listening to podcasts. One of the reasons why I decided to do sports podcasts is because Kenya is experiencing a digital disruption as you're talking right now. On a daily basis, we see people are sort of like creating sports podcasts. And according to a study that was conducted by the State of Podcasting report that was conducted in 2019, the following is just how that particular demographic looks like: music streaming services, online radio shows or TVs, audiobook, and podcasts. For me, I think I was particularly interested in podcasts because of the potential that they have every single day. Young people who have just finished high school, thanks to mobile phones, they create a sports podcast. So I think that is one of the reasons why I was motivated to study sports podcasts in Kenya. And I think by the end of this study, by the end of the presentation, I think I will be interested in presenting to you or making you understand why sports podcasts are important and how they can be harnessed in promoting the Olympic values as we understand them. Now, the research question was, how can motives of creating sports podcasts be harnessed to promote Olympic values? As I've mentioned, there has been a significant change in the consumption patterns in the field of communication, according to a study by Newman and Gallo in 2019. The use of social media has emerged as an alternative use of content consumption compared to TV, radio, and newspaper. Right now, very few or none or no people are watching TV. I think earlier on, with the advent of newspapers, the TV and the radio, it was compulsory, sort of for you to buy a newspaper to be up to date with what was happening. But right now, not really so much. If I want to get information about, say, for example, Arsenal, I'm an Arsenal fan. I don't have to buy a newspaper to get that information. I'll simply log on to the internet and I'll get that particular information. And according to a study that was conducted by Brown, the emergence of social TV complements the consumption patterns and behaviors of consumers. In his study, Brown was able to identify that people sort of rely on social TV platforms or social media, so to speak, to complement information that they've already received from mainstream media channels. The extensive use of podcast has influenced the way people consume and create audio content. Podcasts have challenged the functionality of the radio as a medium because of the fact that the listening to podcast is not an active process compared to the radio. The following are just some of the factors that are influencing the use of podcasts. The first one is the self-determination theory. I'm going to be talking a little bit more about that. The other one is internet use and adoption, which I've really, really, really emphasized on and mentioned a lot at the beginning of this presentation. And the other one is the models of digital access to digital technology. The basis of this study was founded on the self-determination theory. According to this theory explains how people are influenced to seek out things based on their specific needs and wants. For example, if I want to find content about football, I'll go to Sky Sports. If I want to find content about, say, for example, rugby, I'll go to the rugby channel. If I want to find information about athletics, I'll go look at it on the athletics channel. If I want to learn about the Olympics and the developments that have been happening, then I'll definitely go to the social media channels of the Olympics to get this particular information. Self-determination theory, it identifies intrinsic and extrinsic motivations as key reasons why people seek out things to satisfy their needs. This particular theory can be used to explain how intrinsic and extrinsic motivations influence the content consumption and the content creation process. The following are just some of the key components of self-determination theory. The first one is competence. This concept explains how people tend to seek out things that will give them an opportunity to show their skills. The other one is relatedness. This refers to how people have a need to connect with others. As a result, there is need to feel connected to others and receive validation from them. The other one is autonomy. This concept talks about the need to be perceived as original and the source of one's behavior. This is according to Ryan and Connell in 1989. The following are just some of the components or the branches of the self-determination theory. We have the cognitive evaluation theory. This theory describes the effects of social context and the impact that they have on their intrinsic motivations. We have organismic integrated theory. This theory explains how people are able to maintain their identity and autonomy. We have causality orientations theory. This theory explains how people tend to gravitate towards social environments that support their autonomy. And then we have basic needs theory. This theory explains the relationship of motivation and goals to health and well-being. To probably understand how the intrinsic and extrinsic motivation factors work on individual, it will be interesting to understand the different levels of influence. The first level is the global level. The global level refers to the individual factors that influence consumption. And according to this chart, you can tie it down to the components of self-determination theory that I mentioned. That is autonomy, competence, and relatedness. That is works on the global level. The contextual level is affected by contextual factors such as leisure. I could listen to something because I just want to relax. I don't want something serious. And then we have the situation level. This basically talks about affected by situational factors such as the environment. Environment has a big impact in terms of how I respond to certain situations or how individuals respond to certain situations. The methodology, this study used a qualitative approach, and this study used in-depth interviews, which involved conducting interviews with content creators in Kenya to understand their motivations for creating podcasts. And the participant characteristics involved sports content creators who reside in Kenya, have sports podcasts on outlet platforms such as YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Anchor, and have monetized their platforms. The implementation basically involves looking at 4 factors. The first one is familiarization. This involved interacting with the collected data to understand the components that have been captured by the respondents. Then the coding. This involved creating labels about the data to capture and describe the content in the data. Generating themes. This involved coming up with the relevant themes that bring or that seek to provide answers to the research questions, reviewing and naming the themes, assessing and understanding the themes identified in the collected data. Now, according to the findings, the following are some of the motivations for creating sports podcast: passion about sports, predicting games, experimenting, and providing entertainment. These ones are intrinsic factors that work on content creators and push them to create content. The next one is extrinsic factors that work on motivate content creators to make sports podcasts. The first one is making money. The second one is fame. The third one is keeping up with the trends. The other one is educating audiences. Discussions. Most content creators in Kenya are highly motivated by the need to be endeared by their podcast listeners, and as a result, make significant efforts to create content that is seen to demonstrate a knowledge of sports and be accepted by their listeners. That's one. Competence, as I mentioned, wanting to show that they can, it ranked highly as a factor that had a big impact on the motivation of content creators to create sports podcasts in Kenya. And then the last one, autonomy or the need to be perceived as the original or one behavior, was the least motivation that pushed most content creators to resort to the creation of sports podcasts. The conclusion to this particular study is that most content creators are motivated by the love of the genre of sport and the need to share information about it. The second one is, according to the study, tapping into the interest of sports podcast creators can be used, to promote Olympic values in different sports. The third one is the consumption patterns of consumers has an impact on the content appearing on social TV platforms or on social media platforms or on the different outlet platforms. And then the fourth one is content creators can capitalize on the demands of different consumers, especially on social media platforms, to promote Olympic values. Now, taking you back to the purpose of this particular study, which was looking at how sport podcasts can be used to promote Olympic values by understanding why sports podcast, by understanding why sports podcast content creators create content, it might be important to tap into those interests to see how you can put in content that is touching on the Olympic values. Thank you so much for listening.